So the middle movement of the K545 requires a very floating underpinning or bed of harmony, so that it doesn't get too notey and up and down, that you're thinking across by harmonic rhythm, by what chords you're going through. So if you actually first block the chords out this way, dominant, resolve, they're always going to be quite soft. 4 chord, diminished chord, resolve it a little down, float the 1 harmony right across there, the G chord. That's the tonic, dominant, floated right across the whole measure. And here we go, the 1 chord, the 6 chord, the 1 chord, 4 chord. This I play as written. Suspension, resolution. And I continue that way when I first start. Let's float across that 1 chord. 4 chord always a little bit of leaning. Diminished, resolve. So that's 1 chord going across. The dominant, resolve it down. Now the 1 chord. Listen to the bottom note of the chord. There's a moving fundamental bass at that point. Less. That's what I do first. Now when I unravel that, I'm going to be using a little bit of an undulating wrist. But what I do before I actually unravel the chords and make them actually broken chords as they are written, is I play the chords with the right hand. So I do the same thing in toning the chords, and I play actually the right hand. So I get the feeling again of harmonic rhythm and how it affects the phrasing upstairs. And when you play this middle movement, when you have lots of 16th notes, you want to group them. You want to have a sense of the melodic strand that goes through the group, so you don't have, again, notey. It's my favorite word today. Notey means you hear up and down notes. You hear lots of busy work instead of having a destination through a group of notes. And that's the best way I could put it. So in the beginning, I'm going to block the left hand and play the right, which means more arm weight in the right hand. The left hand will never overshadow the right hand throughout this whole movement. It never does. You have to start, again, with a half note. You want to make it beautiful. So when you go into that half note, you're going in with your wrist. You're not going to go punching the note. You're going to extract it, I always say, through the honey of the piano. So going into the density. So that's what I'm going to start with. It says MP, which is correct because you don't want to be too tiny, because this is the first statement of the theme of this first part. So right away in the balance, you want this. I'm just playing around with how I'm balancing the first half note. Be like that. So now I'm going to play through this half note. I'm going to continue the chords. Now I'm going to roll to there. Fall down. This has to say soft. Now this is going higher. It's an answer to what I just said. So you're going to, again, draw out the first note with more depth into the keys. Not in the left hand. Now roll these. Resolve. So I actually group those notes. To there, fall down. And this will continue. Now, one of the weaknesses that can happen, or one of the challenges, is in measure 4 where that's falling down and you have a rest in the right hand, and you have remaining 2 beats of chords, or broken chords, let's say, you don't want them to start jumping out, because we've just been left with this. So this just trickles off, see? And then dominant. Now these I do lift, 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 and then to the 6th chord, and then less here. Now here's more because I've got to do a diminuendo, so I have to start with more arm weight, with groups of 4, and again, I'm grouping the notes in 4s, like undulating or waves of 4. And I drag them 2, 3, to there, and all the way. Now do it back tempo, this is hard. Okay. To there, fall down. Now this is an upbeat, this scale 2, this crescendo, romantic scale. Most now, right hand. Okay, so here. Okay, so that I did this step of the left hand chording the right hand, weaving its melody over it and keeping the left hand down no matter what, and grouping lots of the notes in the right hand, not playing notey. Now if I actually unravel, this is just going to give you an idea of what the basis and the premises for the whole movement is basically what I'm doing here. Now if we actually break the left hand and we play the right hand, we're going to keep that way down, and we're going to, you watch the undulation of my left hand as I weave through the right hand and I sculpt it and shape it. So remember, balance. Roll really works, because otherwise you can get, that's what I call notey. So in this case I'm thinking the D goes to the G, the D falls down to G. And the way I get that is the way I do my choreography. Gives that little wave. Same thing here. Crescendo right hand, most. And rest. Hope this sort of gives you the idea of how I approach this. And the next section will be similar because you're still going to be having broken chords in the left hand, and you're going to have a weaving, well-contoured melody, which is deeper in the keys. But remember, there's no flat dynamics in music, so you're always going in and out of your density. You go deeper, a little higher, and you sculpt the line. That's going to be in the right hand, not in the left. So you could do a little bit of chording here. This I'd give a little bit more, because we're now in D major, we're higher. See, let this train off. You see, I didn't make a big deal out of the rest. The left hand just floats across that in that harmony. And this is more. Now this is tricky to chord, so I subdivide that. See what I did there? Now this is a rather important place. This is going to intensify. Answer. Roll into, lean, resolve it. Big upbeat. Back to what we've already done. Look, notice how I do this. If I had a side view, you'd see how my wrists are working, but at least you could see the notes here. So now, when the left hand has a quicker harmonic rhythm, and doesn't just have the same chord, the same harmony going across for each measure, that's where you are listening for the bottom note, which is a fundamental bass. Like in measure 27, if I chorded it, you'll see it's moving down. So beautiful. I call that Three Blind Mice in two different keys. So I'm listening for that bottom note. If I double it, you'll hear. Doubling the bottom note, because I do want to hear that trailing down underneath the melody, not obliterating it, but certainly making me aware of its kind of counterpoint there. And this is a beautiful place because of what it does harmonically. Now we're back to we already know about this. Falling down to the first G, and that's sort of where you breathe and you start a scale going up. So you don't want to have the two G's sounding the same there. You have two G's next to each other. So when you come out of I'm done now, I'm going all the way to you can see how soft this hand has to be. Sensitive. This hand is doing all the sculpting. You can see how I went around. Okay, so this is like repeating a lot of what we did before. Now, when we come out of this section, I'm not doing the repeats right now. This section ends in G major, which we know when we went major. Suddenly you have minor, and this is the parallel minor, and you have to put a veil over it. This is where the soft pedal works here. So beautiful. Now get off the soft pedal. Finish, upbeat, all the way to. Now this is where the left hand is going to move. Quicker harmonic rhythms, listening to the bass very bottom. So that's going to be important, even to chord it, to hear that. Diminished chord for a moment. The importance of chording is you start really hearing the harmony as a block and what it's doing. Are the chords repeating? Are they moving down with it, as they do here with the bass moving down quickly with different chords? Then when you unravel it, you're tuning into that movement down on the bottom. That's better. More now. Trailing off, so I don't let that jump out over the rest in the right hand. Now this is the climax, but it starts less. Then it falls down. There. Resolve it. Now you might want to do, when all music has rubato of some kind. Of course, you don't want to do too much rubato, which means too many stretches of the beat. But when you're coming back from a minor into a major with this little chromatic scale, you want to do a little poco ritenuto, or I should say not poco, ritenuto, which means stretch. It means a little bit broadening, not too little, but maybe a little bit of broadening is correct. So when here's your minor. Let that trail off more. see the ethos of what I'm talking about, what the way I handle this movement in general. Again, with the rolling left hand that's not notey, that is flowing and wavy, and the right hand that goes in and out with groups of notes, and where I know where my melodic thread is going, where is my destination. Now the last page has a little coda, something different than we've experienced, and I'll lead in with crescendo all the way to the G most. Now here it is. What you have to do here is not go. You see what happens if you do that. You've lost the Mozartian cantabile. It just becomes very notey. That's my favorite word today, it's notey. So what I do is I think of not the lower neighbors. There are little lower neighbors going to upper notes, and then there's a lower neighbor after. I think it's a scale. Hence I get. You can see how I folded in the lower neighbor to defer to the moving top voice of the two voices, really an upper and then an auxiliary note below a lower neighbor, and then I go to the upper one and a lower note. So I go to the upper note. So I hear a scale. The scale is crescendo. Finally, the destination, because that's a longer note. I like to go to longer notes in my phrasing. Drag it. Dissonance. Again. This is bigger. The hands are more spaced. Disappear. A little bit more. There it is. It's very hard to play that ending because it's just getting softer and softer at the end and just disappearing. Now, when we get to measure, when we get to this place with the second scale that repeats what you did before with the lower neighbors, this time, instead of the hands being close, which was the first time when we had this, suddenly, after he does the scale, the hands are going to be separated widely, so that opens up to sound, and it should feel bigger. And it even says forte, it's in gray, but it really should be bigger because now you've opened up it's an open sound, and the hands are separated, and the bass is lower. There again, it gives more intensity. So the second time, I'm going to do the crescendo. That's it. That's a tricky place because, it could get notey again. That's a little notey. That's better. Just drag the notes. Make sure you get the G on top. There, that's better. Anyway, this gives you a little idea of how to approach this. And this is a very tricky movement to play with style and with shape and as if you're evoking the vocal model because it is very vocal. And so you have to group notes and breathe through the notes and have to know where all these 16th notes are going. That is very important. Where are these notes going? I hope this has been helpful.